É professor de Educação baseada na Consciência, ele ensinou em mais de 100 países. O Dr. Dennis é professor de Educação e de Física na Maharishi International University, reitor do corpo docente da MERO e diretor da Maharishi School. Maharishi homenageou o Dr. Dennis como embaixador global da Educação baseada na Consciência. É diretor de programas internacionais da Fundação David Lynch.
Pode só repetir o nome dele?
Ashley Deans. Ashley Deans.
Ashley.
Perdão. James
Deans.
Okay.
Thank you very much for inviting me today to speak at this conference. I would love to be with you in Portugal. It's one of my favorite countries in the whole world, and I love visiting the Algarve and seeing the schools there that have introduced transcendental meditation and TM City program. But I'm traveling in another part of the world today, so I've recorded this and I will go through a slide presentation with you. So today I'm very excited to be able to present because the scientific research on transcendental meditation and the TM City program over the last 50 years has made it obvious that we now have a solution to what has been missing in education. We all know as teachers, we come in with a full heart and we're well prepared, and then how we teach and how it's received could be two different things. We could be a fantastic teacher, but then the students aren't receptive to the knowledge. So I'm going to talk today about how this transcendental meditation program is really the solution. It makes the students more creative, more intelligent, more alert, more enthusiastic, creates a wonderful climate in the school. It helps the teachers in every way. They're better rested, they have less stress, they have more creativity, more tolerance. So it really transforms a school and creates an environment where learning can occur in a very simple way. So I'll begin my slideshow now. Is education for developing higher states of consciousness. And this is the key to ensuring well-being and happiness for students and peace for society. So here's an overview of what I'm going to be talking about. Firstly, I'll talk about the need to reduce stress, both for students and teachers, and to increase the receptivity of the students. Then I'll talk about optimizing brain functioning as a key to higher states of consciousness. And then that gives rise to higher academic achievement, improved health, improved behavior, and then we'll see how that in turn leads to programs to create peace in society. So, firstly, let's talk about the need to reduce stress and increase receptivity. Now, there are three parts to education. There's the knower, the student, the process of knowing, and the knowledge, the known. And our education system today is very good at providing the knowledge of the known. We have wonderful libraries, we have audio-visual systems, but the process of knowing is dependent very much on the creativity of the teacher and also on the functioning of the senses of the student. And then the knower is really not very well understood today at all in education. So what we're going to talk about today is to develop the full potential of the knower, which means developing higher states of consciousness in the student, higher states of intelligence and creativity and the ability to have self-knowledge. So the way we do this is through this technique called transcendental meditation, which has now been introduced into hundreds of schools around the world. And transcendental meditation is a simple, natural, effortless technique that we can learn. Children do the adult technique from the age of 10 years old, and there's a children's technique under that age. And it allows the mind to spontaneously settle down to finer and finer levels of thinking, just like we see in this bubble diagram here. As we go to finer and finer levels, the thought becomes more concentrated in intelligence and creativity, and then we transcend thought and experience that field of pure silent wakefulness inside, which we call transcendental consciousness, a unique state of consciousness which is different from waking, sleeping, and dreaming. And we'll look today and see of the value of having this experience of transcending through transcendental meditation. So transcendental meditation, often called TM, here's a quote from the founder of transcendental meditation: "Transcending thought is infinitely more valuable than thinking." Now this quote takes a little bit of understanding. Obviously we want the children to be able to think, but the thing is, you can have a thought that's very positive for life and for people around you. You could also have a thought that is negative and destructive. And the process of transcending takes the awareness to that level of consciousness where thoughts can only be positive, positive for yourself and positive for the whole environment. So the reason why transcending thought is infinitely more valuable than thinking is transcending thought ensures that your thinking is always positive and progressive and beneficial for yourself and for society. So let's have a look at some research. Here's a study from the American psychologist comparing transcendental meditation to eyes closed rest. And you can see on these measures of relaxation and rest that transcendental meditation is completely different to rest. It's much, much deeper than rest. So we see here with skin resistance on the left, respiration rate in the middle, and plasma lactate on the right-hand side. And this deep level of rest, which is gained during transcendental meditation, is very, very beneficial for all aspects of mind and body. So we see here that these studies over many years now have shown that transcendental meditation, shown there on the right in red, is much more effective in reducing anxiety than any other technique that's ever been studied. And of course, anxiety is a very serious problem today in society, and we know that stress gives rise to disease. So now we have a simple way that children can practice 10 to 15 minutes in the morning in the classroom, 10 to 15 minutes in the afternoon, sitting comfortably in a chair. They can transcend, that gives the body deep rest, and then they're much more alert, awake, and ready to learn during the day. It's also very useful for teachers. Here's a study from the Permanente Journal showing that after 3 months, transcendental meditation had significantly reduced the symptoms of teacher burnout. And that is a very great finding, a great relief to teachers. And then here's another study. I'm only giving you a very small number of studies from the American Journal of Hypertension, showing again in a randomized controlled trial that the students who had started transcendental meditation compared to the control group had highly significantly reduced distress, anxiety, depression, anger, and hostility, and were much more able to cope with the everyday challenges that life presents. So you can see very quickly, I've shown you now, that this technique of transcendental meditation addresses one of the most fundamental problems in education today, and that is stress and psychological distress in students. So there's now been over 650 studies performed at 300 research institutes in 30 countries. Here you can see graphically 8 volumes of research collected from journals around the world. And this is Dr. Fred Travis, the director of the Center for Brain, Consciousness and Cognition, who is one of the world experts in looking at the brain during transcendental meditation. And so now we're going to look at how to optimize brain functioning through transcendental meditation. Now, these are brain scans that show blood flow to the brain. And on the left is optimal blood flow, and on the right is blood flow to the brain during stress. And I want you to notice the prefrontal cortex at the top of the graph, particularly on the right. And you see that during stress, blood flow to the prefrontal cortex is greatly diminished. Now, if you keep experiencing something over a period of time, that malfunction in the brain becomes permanent. And this is one of the problems in society, that we're so stressed all the time that our prefrontal cortex begins to go offline. So we know that stress damages the brain, and we realize now that we need an antidote to stress. And so you see here, here's the brain. On the left-hand side is the prefrontal cortex. This is the thinking brain. And on the back of the brain, on the right, is the impulsive brain. So we really want to take this very seriously, that we need to develop the coherence in the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, because that's the chief executive officer of the brain that controls the impulsive behavior. So think before we do. So the prefrontal cortex is impulse control, long-term planning, concentration, emotional stability, learning ability, self-awareness, ethical thinking, moral reasoning. All of the higher values of humanity are controlled by the prefrontal cortex at the front of the brain. So what happens during transcendental meditation? If we look at the left, the orange areas are in the frontal area of the brain there, and this indicates increased blood flow to the brain. So you can see that the brain becomes nourished in the frontal areas, and the blue in the brain stem there shows relaxation of the stress and fear center, the impulsive part of the brain. So this is looking at brain waves and looking at the coherence of brain waves. So on the left, you see these dots. These represent the leads of the electroencephalograph. And here we're looking at alpha coherence, so that's alpha waves. This is 8 to 10 cycles per second. And when you see a line drawn between two dots, it means that there is coherence between those two areas of the brain. And you can see with eyes closed, there's slightly more coherence in the back of the brain, but not a lot. But because the back of the brain, when you've got your eyes closed, the visual cortex is relaxing a little bit. But on the right, you see during transcendental meditation. And look at what it says there. After 30 seconds of TM practice, the whole brain has become coherent. And now you can see that the front of the brain is coherent with the back of the brain. So the prefrontal cortex is now assuming its role of being the chief executive officer. And you also see coherence between the left side of the brain, the mathematical side, and the right side, the artistic side. So the whole brain is starting to function coherently and holistically. And this is what we can now add to education. We know that students come to school with all sorts of issues. There might have been issues at home. They may be worried about an exam. They may be worried about their friends. There's all sorts of stresses and strains in their lives. So we start the school day with 10 to 15 minutes of transcendental meditation. Their whole body becomes deeply rested. Their mind becomes more alert. Their brain becomes coherent. And then they're ready to learn. And then they are receptive to knowledge. And we can draw a parallel here between our consciousness and the physical universe. On the left, we see the physical universe, and this is from physics. You see there are different layers to physics. So you have the molecular level and the atomic level and the nuclear level. And today, the cutting edge of physics are these unified field theories. Unified field theory tells us that all the laws of nature, all the more expressed levels of the universe, are contained in seed form in this one single field of unity. And when we transcend in transcendental meditation, we experience subtler levels of the mind, and we experience this field of pure consciousness, this unified field at the source of thought. And it's turning out now that the source of the organizing power and the laws of nature of the universe are this single unified field, and that is the field that's experienced during transcendental meditation, the field of pure consciousness. So great scientists today, such as Dr. Tony Nader and Dr. John Hagelin, are proposing that consciousness is primary in the universe, that the universe is actually an expression of consciousness rather than just being matter, and therefore consciousness has to become our primary focus in the field of education. So this is the first main point, and that is that it's only the experience of transcendental consciousness that enlivens total brain functioning. I'll say that again, it's so important. Only the experience of transcendental consciousness enlivens total brain functioning. So that is the experience that's been missing from education for thousands of years. Now we can restore that and bring education to the high ideals that we've always wanted. And we see also that when does this total brain functioning get enlivened? When the mind is transcended to the source of all knowledge in the universe, the source of our own thought. So experience of the field of total knowledge brings total brain functioning. So let's see how that affects the intelligence and the academic achievement of the students. So as I mentioned, transcendental meditation has been introduced into hundreds of schools worldwide. This is in California here. The students, they can meditate. They love meditating because it's easy to do, it's simple. And this is a study from Taiwan showing that over 6 months, compared to groups who were doing other forms of meditation, transcendental meditation created a large improvement in intellectual performance. So on the left, we see creativity improved significantly, practical intelligence improved, field independence improved, mental efficiency, and on the right, abstract intelligence, which is the ability to learn new concepts. So these are all qualities that we want to develop in the students, and now through this simple technique we can develop these qualities in every single student. So we don't have to rely now on having some students who are bright and more intelligent, and now we can develop the full creative potential of every student. And just to give you an insight, this is a school in California. It's called Visitation Valley, which had the worst academic performance of any school in San Francisco Bay Area. And after 3 months, the group that were instructed in transcendental meditation had significantly improved in their mathematics achievement, and the same result was seen also in their English achievement. So if you want to improve the students in a very natural and effortless way, then they should practice transcendental meditation twice a day. And at the Maharishi School in Fairfield, Iowa, the students have many, many records in creativity, winning these international competitions of problem solving. And the reason is not because the children are selected for their creativity, but every child has infinite potential, infinite creativity. Transcendental meditation allows them to experience that field of intelligence and creativity within themselves. And then naturally, as we're more relaxed, less stressed, then health improves. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. There are many examples, but time is limited. But here from Canada, in the red line, you see the increased medical costs as people get older. So on the x-axis is years. The vertical dotted line is when one of the groups was given transcendental meditation. And you see that over a period of 5 years, that there was about a 50% drop in their medical costs compared to the red group, which did not learn transcendental meditation. So this gives us a great encouragement for the field of healthcare, which today is becoming so expensive. The key to successful healthcare is prevention of disease. Transcendental meditation is an important part of that preventive armamentarium. And then here a study from the Journal of the American Heart Association, circulation. And this showed that those people who had meditated for at least 8 times a week over a period of 5 years had a 66% decrease in their rate of heart attack, stroke, and mortality. So now that we're teaching this to children, it'll take time to study over the years how they progress, but we're looking now at a very significant breakthrough in these very serious diseases in our Western society. So what happens as the children are performing better in school and they're less stressed? Then their behavior improves. And so we see the study from a school in Connecticut where the dropout rates were 20.5%, and then after a year of TM had fallen down to 5%. And parents would say, my child now wants to go to school, and they want to get to school on time so they won't miss their meditation. This is the kind of enthusiasm that students begin to show for knowledge. And here in San Francisco, you see at this middle school, outlined in red, that the dropout rate went down by 79%. Suspension rates went down 79% over 3 years. So the average suspension rates in the Bay Area are shown in blue, and you can see that that school completely transformed after they introduced transcendental meditation. So again, just to reiterate, this is the way nature works, that there are layers to nature: surface level, deeper level, fundamental level, which in physics is the unified field, and the same with our consciousness. We have the surface level of thinking, quieter levels of thinking, and transcendental meditation allows the mind to settle to that most profound level, which is the field of no thought, pure consciousness, pure awareness, which is the source of everything in the universe. So now we can look at programs worldwide to create peace in society, because as people are less stressed, they become more peace-loving. But this is in Washington, D.C., where in this school the violence went down dramatically after transcendental meditation was introduced. This is in Holland, in the Netherlands. This is in Hungary. This is in dear Portugal, where you are, in the Algarve, where you've heard about the success of the programs that are being introduced there. This is in Italy. This is in Australia. This is in Kenya, Uganda, South Africa. This is in Indonesia, where many programs are now starting. These are Buddhist children, and they are now doing transcendental meditation. So the meditation they used to use was very difficult. Now they can transcend effortlessly. This is India. This is in Nepal. This is in China. This is in Mongolia. This is in the Middle East and Mexico and Guyana and Bolivia and Chile and Peru. So on it goes, Brazil. And what we're seeing here is that during transcendental meditation, the whole brain becomes integrated. This is the key. The thing that's been missing from education is the ability to develop coherence in the brains of our students. And because consciousness is not localized, you see here on the left the idea that consciousness is localized somehow, but everybody knows that there's collective consciousness. You have the collective consciousness of the class, of the town in which you live, of the country in which you live. We can also talk about world consciousness. So as individual consciousness becomes more coherent, then that influence spreads in an unlocalized way and influences those around us. So what happens is, and you'll see this here, this is in the United Kingdom, this is near Liverpool, where this school achieved the number of students practicing transcendental meditation and the older students with the TM City program and the teachers with the TM City program, where they achieved this number, which was 1% of the population of the local area. And then we saw this. This was published in Psychology, Crime and Law. This is showing over the years how the crime is going up in the Merseyside area. And then as soon as the school achieved that 1% number of the population, then there was a phased transition from rising crime to lower and reducing crime. And this has been now seen all over the world in many, many studies. In the United States, for example, here's Maharishi International University, where people meditate together twice a day, and the numbers have risen to a high number in the past. And let me just show you what the results were. So this is from 2003 on the x-axis to 2011. And a wealthy businessman wanted to try out this effect. It's called the Maharishi effect, where a group of individuals can improve the whole society. So this is the number of people who were participating, and he funded them to, in 2007, you see it achieved a number of 1,700 or more, which is the square root of 1% of the United States population. So what the research shows is when they're doing not only transcendental meditation, but also this TM City program in a group, then you only need the square root of 1% of the population. And this is what happened. So that's the size of the group. And then this is what happened to violent crime. You can see it goes up in the summer and down in the winter like that in a regular pattern. And this is when that TM City program began in 2007. And you can see then there's just a highly significant reduction in violent crime throughout the United States. And this is the same thing for motor vehicle fatalities. And you may wonder, well, how could some people meditating together actually decrease motor vehicle fatalities? But the vast majority of motor vehicle fatalities are caused by a lapse in the consciousness of the driver not being able to pay attention or becoming sleepy or whatever it may be. And when you have a large group practicing the TM City program together, that raises the collective consciousness of the whole society. So even people who've never heard of transcendental meditation benefit by having greater awareness, alertness, higher consciousness, and then less tendency for motor vehicle accidents. And the same thing with infant mortality also went down because the health of the population had gone up. And as the health of the population goes up, then infant mortality goes down. So you can see now that the children in schools are going to be the generators of coherence for the whole society. So let's review the benefits. So this is decreased stress, we've seen, reduced teacher burnout, optimized brain functioning, increased creativity, higher academic achievement, and improved social behavior, all resulting from raising the level of consciousness. So just like a tide raises all boats, then everyone benefits from increased coherence in collective consciousness. So to finish, I give you this little thing that we say to the children: water the root to enjoy the fruit. And notice here that the root is underground, it's hidden. So this field of transcendental consciousness, we don't really know it's there in everyday life. It's only when we transcend and nourish it that that acts as that ability to develop the sap which nourishes the whole tree. So consciousness ultimately is all that there is. It's the most vital part of education, and development of consciousness is something that we're now very, very fortunate to be able to introduce into schools. And I congratulate everyone in Portugal, because Portugal really is leading the world, as you'll hear from the other speakers today. So thank you. That's the end of the slideshow. That's my talk. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this conference will be able to give you more information on this very exciting transcendental meditation and TM City program, which can be introduced so easily into schools everywhere. And I know already Portugal is leading the world. So it's a very, very fortunate time to be an educator. Thank you so much.